not a blind guy. I mean, obviously, I care about the patients and the care, but you know, I was here when everything went south. And part of the reason was we had bed closures because we did window replacement. You know, things we just never recovered from. That's why when I heard that number, it was like, why $800,000? That's really a tribute.
That's all I have to offer. I'm out of water. Would you like a drink? This is mine. I just filled half of it up with spring water. I love this water. It's so good.
Yes. Okay, good. And I don't like to be active, but with the CMI.
Listen, Mom, my feelings are hurt, but I'll go for it. I love your house, and I was left out last year. Yeah, he said to me at the Grace Advisory Board last week.
So I'm working with.
You didn't come to my party. I wasn't invited to your party, Bob. You didn't invite me to your party, Bob. That's pretty bad.
Best way to reimburse. That's money on the table. You'll see increases with that. Excellent. No, I'm just never thought never thought I'd see the other side of that equation. Yes. Thank you so much. I'll pass it on to Chris Bell. Yeah. Because I have a couple line there. Well, thank you. Good to see you. Okay.
We're due 6:30, right? They're still pounding the pavement.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. My pleasure.
I just need a one-liner. Wait, just for 1 second, grab one line.
Okay. Yeah, let's get started.
But you don't know what's happening. You've just been told them.
We ready?
Thank you. Get this done.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call the Northampton County Council meeting of January 19th, 2017 to order. Please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Zembo, can we call the roll?
Mr. Bennell?
Here.
Mr. Kuzic?
Present.
Mr. Dietz?
Here.
Mrs. Ferraro? Here. Mr. Geisinger?
Present.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Vaughn?
Here.
And Mr. Warren?
Here.
All present, Mrs. Ferraro by phone.
All are present, one electronically. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the January 3rd, 2017, and the January 5th, 2017 minutes. Do we have a motion to approve by acclamation? Moved by Mr. Kraft, seconded by Mr. Dietz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? None. Next item is courtesy of the floor. We have 6 people signed up.
The first one is Deanna, is it Dorati, 10 Monument Road.
Deanna Durante, I think we met at the last meeting. From NBC 10 News. We're based in Bala Cynwyd in Montgomery County. Now that some of you have heard some of the information regarding Sarah Packer and her employment here, is there anyone that's going to comment or ask a question as to what this county knew in 2010 when you terminated her employment? And did you pass that information on to any other county or any other social service agency?
Well, you know, my only comment is that I work with children that are not much older than Grace Packer, and what I know is what I've read in the paper, and it's a horrific tragedy that I can't even begin to fathom. And as we heard earlier from the county executive, there is an ongoing investigation, and you know, my hope is that we cooperate fully and justice is done. And that's all I can say.
But that didn't answer the question as to what this county knew in 2010 and what you did with that information.
And again, that's what I can tell you at this point. John.
Phil make a comment?
Mr. Lauer?
Well, I think, just to simply add to what the President has said, I don't think at this point in time anyone knows precisely what was known at that time. That's part of the ongoing investigation. I'm sure at the appropriate time, the DA and anyone else with that information will make some sort of public statement, but I honestly think it would be inappropriate for council to comment at all. We don't know the answers to your question.
Thank you. Next person we have is Sherry Acevedo. You're going to take care of those trail gaps for us, right?
Well, actually, I'm up in Monroe County working now.
Oh.
Yes. I saw this on the agenda that I would love to be presenting to you about that because, you know, that was my former capacity. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sherry Acevedo. I'm a local resident in Wind Gap Borough. Formerly, I used to come here and present to you over the years, over the past 15 years actually, on behalf of open space, trails, greenways, and throughout the Lehigh Valley. But tonight I'm here more as a resident, and the concern that we have in our area, Elisa is one of our representatives with the group, with the Synagro, against the Synagro. The concerns that I have as a resident, I have 2 young children, been a resident of Wind Gap Borough and Plainfield Township my entire life, and we have a lot of respiratory issues, asthma, and if the sludge plant would come through up in our Slate Belt region, the concern is on behalf of the environment and also the health concerns. I, as a professional and a conservation professional over the past 20 years, especially 15 years dedicated here, coming to you as a council, working with you for a long time in our open space issues of conservation, farmland preservation, especially up in the Slate Belt. Our greenways and our riparian corridors and the Blue Mountain, which is locally known as the Blue Mountain, but the Kittatinny Ridge, is the last forested continuous ridge that we have in Pennsylvania. We worked very hard as a conservation community with you included, and I applaud you and I thank you for that, because you still continue to have that foresight and that vision to continue it. If this plant goes through, we have some major impacts, environmental impacts, that are not taken into consideration. And I am coming to you as a resident to make you aware of that. Because I think it's, you know, coming to Plainfield Township, I think that some of that's being overlooked when it comes down to the water quality, our watershed, our streams, but especially to the livability of our communities. Myself, my mother who's here, and my children all have severe asthma. And from the reports that we're reading, based upon, you know, other parts of the country, that have had this type of facility. People can't even go outside their homes, hang their laundry, and be out there for a long period of time because of the amount of pollution. And I equate that a lot to Lehigh Gap Nature Center, which is a conversion of a property of a Superfund site. Palmerton Zinc Company had a lot of contamination. I was part of that project as well, so my conservation work extended beyond the Lehigh Valley. But one of the failed attempts that they looked at was some raw sewage and sludge. And of course, the vegetation did not grow. It was our efforts of putting together, natural-based methods that worked. So I looked to that moonscape that had 3 inches of metal contamination, heavy metal, and say, I don't want that in my area. And I certainly don't want that for my family and for the community that we've helped build. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Dottie Petrolak, Penargil.
I live in Plainfield Township, and I don't know if you're familiar with the project of the Synagro project. Are you?
Just what I read about it.
What you read about it is nice. They give this and they pass this out to anyone who wants it. This looks like it's a very green project. Okay, I don't know if you want to see that. I pass it if you want.
No. Yeah, go ahead. We'll take it.
And they're passing it out as being like a Earth Day event. Earth Day, we're green. We're going to have the best equipment, the best landfill. Already, I don't know if you know, but the Little Bushkill Creek, which some of their sludge is diverted into the Little Bushkill. It is polluted. It's polluted. The Fish Commission will not stock fish there because of the pollution. And well, they're saying, okay, because of the online landfill. Well, maybe. But it wasn't polluted until, I forget, my husband's on the Fish Commission, and it's just in the past years when the fish were bellying up, they said, that's it, no more fish in the Little Bushkill, done. So Synagro is coming together with Waste Management, or whatever, the USA Waste, I think they're called, and the Green Knight Economic Development Corporation. And they also make it sound good like they're giving a lot of money to the economic development of our community. The waste, I don't know, I checked, you could check tax forms. It's public views. They're setting on a $4 million bank account, 3.88, and last year's income after everything was 1.88 million, of which they gave $20,000 to the community out of 1.88 million. My biggest concern is our health. We have, I mean, if you could see the topography of Wind Gap, Plainfield Township, and Penargil, we do have, like this, let's say this is the mountain. And down there, they put here's another mountain. This mountain is the mountain of garbage, which is going to be as tall as that mountain. And if they do get this waste from New York City, New Jersey, and Connecticut, it's medical waste, it's human feces as well, but it's also included medical waste and industrial waste. It's going to have pathogens. It's going to have stuff like that's going to just pollute our air, our water, our ground. They have been putting it on the Mount Bethel on their fields. So someone says, oh, I don't want that no more. I want to sell my property. Guess what? You can't, because the sludge was applied.
Okay.
So we are concerned about our health. Another thing is, it probably could be a conflict of interest, but on the Green Knight development, they have 2 people who are also board members of the Green Knight Development Corporation.
Okay.
So Steve Herney is still on.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take it under advisement. Elisa Robles Carlo, another Penargil.
I am here basically for the same issue about the Synagro project. And my main concern is the fact that the public has not been represented. I formed, along with some of my community members, the Sludge Free Slate Belt community group. And we started a online petition with change.org. I have some flyers. Can I give these to you guys?
Sure.
They're for everybody. Basically, we haven't been getting any publicity at all as far as our community group. Everything that's been in the paper about this project has been pro-Synagro and is making it out like the public is unaware of what's going on or they don't really know what's going on. And the fact of the matter is we have close to 700 petition signatures online already, and we started about 3 weeks ago this whole project to get out the word to the public. And people need to know that we exist and that we are not for this project. This company, Synagro, has a history of scandals and bribery, and they've had other sludge plants. There was a sludge plant in Hunts Point, New York, that had an explosion in 2003, and they finally closed it down in 2010, and they celebrated the closing. And we already deal with the Grand Central landfill as it is. And being a Penargil member and other community members of Wind Gap, we have no say in what's going to happen other than to protest. And that's what we're here for, to let you know that there are people out there that are not happy about this. Their community is not happy about this. And people need to be aware of the fact that we exist, this group exists, Sludge Free Slate Belt, and that we're on change.org. No Synagro, Sludge Plant, Sludge Free Slate Belt. And that's pretty much all I needed to say.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is it Aries Vega, 3121 Glen Avenue, Easton? Welcome.
Hello. So I'd just like to bring to attention a extracurricular club that I'm a part of called the Technology Student Association. Now it's a slowly growing group as there is a program called Project Lead the Way that has been increasing the amount of engineers and people interested in technology coming to the club and enjoying our club activities, such as our regional and state competitions. I just want to know your opinion on any future, activity with the club. Any help with anything like fundraising, getting word out there to community. Any future help that we could get.
Sure. Well, I want to applaud your effort anytime young people take an initiative to start a club and do things. It certainly should be applauded. Obviously, the way that you can get the word out nowadays is a lot different than it was when I was in school. You can set up a Facebook page, a Twitter account. The social media that's out there for you to generate some publicity is really incredible. So that would be my first recommendation. And since you are a technology club, that seems like a great place to start. The other thing would be to maybe reach out to some of the local colleges, like Northampton Community College or Lehigh or Lafayette. They have great engineering departments. You might want to go there and see if you can set up a field trip. Things like that are all great ideas. And I assume you have a faculty advisor at this point that's...
Yes.
So I would coordinate with my faculty advisor trips to the local colleges to get some experience. I remember when when I was in high school, we had a trip to what used to be Bell Labs over in Allentown. So there's an example of something you might want to do. But again, congratulations, and if there's anything we can do. We do have an IT department here, and they're always looking for some help. So maybe when you get through college and you want to apply, we're always looking for good people. Any other comments for this young man? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Destiny George, 326 North 11th Street.
On the same lines as him, but for a different club, I'm part of FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, and we're slowly growing as well. And just wanted to hear your opinions on that, because I feel like our business club, it's not really growing, and it's not as much, and people are like, oh, business isn't that important, but it really is to the economy and to our local. So I wanted to hear your opinions.
I guess recommend the Chamber of Commerce's. I mean, they'd probably have the local businesses that would be able to help you in the area and have probably the best resources to help grow. And they'd probably be excited to have you guys come to. They usually have like monthly events or every other month. Get you out there to it and probably get you some support that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing is, I mean, we have an economic development department here. Mr. Herlinger is in the audience. Maybe if he would want to come to school one day and give a little presentation. He's got a card you can pick up from him. I think that might be a place to interact with county government, and you might want to pass that along to your faculty advisor. And the other thing that I'll say is think about a small business. You could mow lawns, babysitting, things like that. Entrepreneurship is something that is lacking in a lot of places these days. So, again, kudos for being involved. I think certainly, if we could have a guest speaker, we'd certainly be able to provide one for you. Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so much.
Mr. Kraft?
Yeah, maybe you can, since you're the business club and they're the technology club, maybe they can make us kind of web design of some sort or some kind of widget to sell on the internet, and you guys can market it and sell it, which would be a great idea for your both faculty advisors to get together.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was all I had listed. Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? Mr. O'Hare and
Kids will make more money.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brown, my name is Bernie O'Hare and I live in Nazareth. And we all know that in July, and it's a tragedy, that a young girl was raped, murdered, and then dismembered by a former Northampton County adoption supervisor. We all know that that's a disgrace, that something like that happened. But what disturbs me is a complete lack of transparency by the administration and now by council about exactly what has happened and what is being done. We still don't know how many caseworkers are there in children and youth. We don't know what is their caseload like. We don't know that. Why is nobody asking questions about that? We don't know what kind of work schedule do they have? Do they work from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 at night, as some of them have said anonymously on my blog? Is it long hours like that? What kind of pressure are they under? What kind of educational background do they have to have before they are hired? Mr. Brown has addressed none of this. In fact, in early December, when the NBC 10 reporter first began contacting the county about this, the county stonewalled. The county said nothing. And then it wasn't until December 23rd that this was reported by the NBC 10, And it was not until a month after that, and 3 hours after Lamont McClure announces that he's running for county executive, that John Brown finally issues a statement concerning this matter. That's completely unacceptable. And it's completely unacceptable for you to sit here and not to demand answers. A 15-year-old girl died. The person who killed her was a former adoption supervisor in Northampton County. What's wrong with you? We have a county council here that circles the wagons and says, oh, we can't talk about personnel matters. Oh, well, we can't talk about children. Well, you can certainly talk about the caseworker hours. You can certainly talk about what you're doing, and you're not really doing that. You're circling the wagons. Just like you won't release your county email addresses on your website, which is a complete tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you could state your name and address.
My name is Thomas Carlo. I live in Penargil. I just want to talk a little more about the sludge plant. Any of the research that we've been doing just tells you how bad this stuff is. If you talk to anyone from Upper Mount Bethel, one farm they put it on, the gentleman that had the property in front of them, they got sick right away. They put this sludge on another farm on top of snow. The farmer didn't spread it out right away. The stuff self-combusted. There's flammable stuff in this. EPA only tests for 10 metals and I think 2 pathogens. And there's also research that, because they're not selling this for human consumption, they're giving it to either farm animals or the deer population's eating it. And there was a study done, I believe, in southwestern PA that they're finding it's like a biomarker or a tracer that's similar to the same thing that was mad cow disease. So, they're telling you how good this stuff is. They want to bring in 400 tons a day of sludge into waste management. They're going to be bringing it over 33, Route 512. They come off 80. It's going to come all the way that way. And like Lisa said, they've had explosions. Just Google, if you do any research on your own, Google illnesses related to sludge, explosions related to sludge. It's not only happening here, it's happening overseas. And they want to tell you how good this stuff is. They're also going to be storing chemicals on the property that they're going to be using to scrub the air to make it smell good. Well, if they're putting perfume in the air so it smells good, they're hiding something. And I also want to say it seems to me, kind of weird. They've been talking about this, we found out, for about a year. And about a year ago, there's a small bridge on Grand Central that runs behind Waste Management that all of a sudden the town decided they want to redo. And now there's a sign up there that says 20-ton weight limit. Because part of that, it's part of the old railroad walking paths that Plainfield Township owns and manages. When you go over that and make a right into Grand Central, Plainfield Township gave Waste Management permission to use that into their back. Now all of a sudden they're doing this, and that's possibly a second location that they're looking to put this sit and grow plant. So it seems kind of funny that both things happen at the same time. So that's it. Like I said, we're just trying to get the word out. Thank you.
Well, again, I share your concern, and Mr. Dietz, and then Mr. Vaughn.
Yeah, so obviously, Wing Gap resident myself and neighbor up there, and I've been following this. Obviously, it's in my backyard up there, and attending some of the meetings. And me personally, am against it, and going to try and see, what we can do. I really, we spent a lot of money investing on the trails and recreation and tourism, everything else. That this is really just going to personally negate. And even as someone, as a free market guy, and that, we shouldn't be the dumping ground to keep the sewage costs lower for New York City and that by polluting our backyard with it. I think it's one thing communities deal with their own sewage and sludge on the small scale, but to be the dumping grounds and the waterways, I think, I realize it is more of a local issue, but since it spans waterways and obviously when you dump in one spot, it's going to spread around. I would personally like to see if there's anything that we can do or what grounds we have.
Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Bell.
Yeah, I just, I've only briefly read about this in the paper because I don't know that it was that publicly advertised. But is there any possibility that any of this can possibly migrate into our waterways? I know that Bethlehem's water supply comes from the mountains and down into Bethlehem from the reservoir.
They want to put the wastewater into either Little Bushkill or into the Wolds Creek, which everything ends up going into the Delaware. They're already putting this on the farms. Okay, they did it in Upper Mount Bethel. People from Upper Mount Bethel were raising money, spending money to try to fight this to get it out. Everywhere they put this, they're having problems with it.
My other question is, and I thank you guys for coming here and enlightening us, but what is our role that you would like us to do? What can we do to help your cause if we're interested? I don't know. Maybe that's a question for the solicitor or the president, perhaps.
I mean, as someone who is a former township official that did have a landfill in our township, I certainly understand and sympathize with your concerns. Unfortunately, at the county level, we don't have much that we can do from a legal standpoint, other than to point you in the right direction. Obviously, number one is DEP. You need to have those hearings and be present and prepared. I know some of the groups that have been opposed to this have even gone so far as to hire some legal counsel to represent their interests. So that may be something that you want to look into as part of your group.
I think going to DEP is pretty much going to be a waste because they can't even get on the same page. They got some scientists who are telling you how bad it is. There was one that ended up doing the Whistleblower Act because he got fired because he was saying how bad it is. There's if you Google this stuff, that's what we've been doing. We found out about it from Upper Mount Bethel. They spent their money to send us flyers to say that this was going in. And it's been a year in the making. And that's the only reason why we found out about it. Now, Plainfield Township's making a decision for 3 towns. And most of the Plainfield Township residents do not live in the area where it's going to be. It's going to be right close to Penargil.
Anything else on Mr. Bell?
I sympathize with your cause. I mean, and I know I publicly stated my angst with Lower Nazareth putting in the box warehouse stores because I live in Palmer. The problem is I don't think this county council has much teeth. We can what is it, a referendum or an ordinance giving support.
We could give a resolution of support, but that would
But that's about it. My knowledge from the box warehouse stores is you're going to have to go to Plainfield Township and go after their zoning to see if there's anything that would be an exception. If this sludge plant has to apply for exceptions, my true sympathies come is you're looking at a monstrous bank account for lawyers, and unless you can get the DEP or a local state rep, state senator to jump on this, I mean, I'm sure we could reach out to our colleagues on both sides of the aisle and support. But whatever we can do to help, I think that legally there's really nothing that we can do.
They've already applied for variances because it's only a single-use property. So where they want it, so they already applied for that. Where they want to put it, this type of waste isn't even allowed there, so they got to get another variance for that. They have 2 storage stacks that they want to put in. They got to get variance for that because they're higher than what they're allowed.
Yeah, because that's I think really where you're going to have to hang your hat is to make sure that those variances don't get granted.
Like I said, we went to their council meeting in Penargil, and they basically said, "We're listening to you, but we can't do anything. We can't." They couldn't come out even publicly because they said if there's any litigation, they can't show. Right. In Plainfield Township, we were just at their planning meeting, and they said the same thing. Synagro just pushed this back again. They were supposed to have a meeting, and they pushed it back. Why? Are they trying to regroup and find another place? to put it in the same waste management area, we don't know. You know, but they're telling you how good this stuff is, and they had a nice little presentation in the town. We went to the first one in Plainfield, and they actually threw us out of the building. And then when the news came, they said, "Oh, come in, it's cold outside."
All right, Mr. Warner, and then we'll have to move on.
Absolutely sympathize with all of you and appreciate you all being here. I don't know if council can do anything, but I might have an idea that you might want to try, okay? You're talking about water tables, which has to do with your sewer plant, your sewer facilities, your people that where the water goes into your homes, okay? There are regulations that govern what can go into that plant. And if you can get to those people, I don't know if you already have, if there's some kind of indication that there are bad biosolids or whatever's coming into that plant that don't belong there, and there's some indication that there is some kind of contamination, you can use that against them.
I'm looking at it too, is the stuff that they're bringing in there that they want to process. It was banned from dumping in the ocean. So if it was polluting the ocean, how is drying it up and heating it making it any better? To put in fields, they're putting it in forest, you know, just to get rid of it, because they're saying it's a fertilizer. Stuff we read is only 1 to 3% of nutrients in there that are getting absorbed into the soil. Everything else is either sitting there getting washed away, getting sucked up into the vegetation. Like I said, the wildlife are eating it. They're feeding it to, I'm assuming, because it's for non-human consumption, they're selling it for feed, and then it's getting into us that way.
If what you're saying in this, and this is done by supposedly a PhD, and some of this work was done by...
The second page is done by scientists.
The volatile organics that you're talking about, the toxic substances, the chemical compounds that are being used, if you would approach your sewer plant where your main water supply goes to your towns and talk to them about what's allowed and what isn't, the VOC levels and dangers, you might get some help.
Okay.
Mr. Phillips, you had a point?
I'm the liaison to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and I go to pretty much all their meetings. I don't remember this being discussed. At the next meeting, I'll talk to the executive director beforehand, Becky Bradley, and I'll ask her if we could discuss that to understand what the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission is, because they look at all the plans and they make recommendations, and their recommendations have teeth. So I think Mr. Dietz made a great point. You know, we spend so much money, we're so concerned about a lot of the things we do to make Northampton County beautiful, and then, you know, this is sort of appears to be counter to that. So what I'll do is I will do that. I mean, that's not much, but it's something that I'll get the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission their statement on this.
You know, anything will help, because we've been going door to door, and I'd say 90% of the people either heard about it or know nothing about it, and if they heard about it, they knew very little. And they're trying to promote it as a jobs thing. It's only going to bring in 16 jobs. There's 16 jobs worth the health of everybody, and polluting the water and polluting the ground. You know, we moved out here from Jersey because we wanted to get out of Jersey, away from all the crap. And now they're going to bring all the crap to us.
On that note, any further comments, Mr. Geisinger?
I will simply say to you and to everyone who came tonight, both Mr. Dietz and I are residents of the Slakeville area. We live in the Wind Gap, Plainfield Township area, and we are exploring what we can from a county standpoint to be able to do to support this effort that you are trying to. But again, that may be very limited. So we are best working at the township level.
Appreciate anything you can do, and I want to thank Mr. Dietz for inviting us here today, because we didn't even think about coming on the county level and talking about it.
Well, thank you for coming then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we had under courtesy of the floor. Next item is confirmation of appointments, and at this time I'll call on Mr. Kraft to introduce the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first one I have here is be it resolved by Northampton County Council that the following individuals shall be confirmed in their appointments, reappointments as indicated hereafter. The Airport Authority have Brian Dames from Nazareth, PA, 5-year term ending December 31, 2023. Have Mr. J. Michael Dowd, who's in the room, I believe, as a reappointment from Easton, PA, term to expire 12/31/21. Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council, I have the appointment of Thomas Ripash from Bethlehem, PA, term to expire 7/1/18. Gaming Revenue and Economic Redevelopment Authority, I have the appointment of Donna M. Louder from Bethlehem, PA, term to expire 12/31/21. And the last one I have here is a reappointment in the business category for the Lehigh Valley Workforce Development Board of Constance Hood of Nazareth, PA, term to expire 6/30/18. And we didn't have a quorum last night at our meeting, but we were putting these all forward to a full council for a vote, and we saw no problem with what was coming through.
Okay. Mr. Phillips?
And were these all reviewed yesterday? Because I know there's one that came in late, and I was just wondering if that was...
Well, the one that was brought today, we didn't cross paths. I should have read it last night, but we didn't have a quorum, so I said I'd bring everything that was going to be presented last night to tonight's meeting, because I didn't have anybody show up for my meeting except for myself. So it's Brian, you were late.
And I was late.
It was Brian Dames of Nazareth, PA, and Mr. Geisiger was going to bring it, the executive. They wanted it here, but my meeting was too quick because no one showed up, so we didn't get a chance to do it.
But we only had his credentials today, correct? I didn't see this before. And we do have an ordinance that says that we have to have it there for 7 days before.
We do. I was approached about this instantly after my meeting to ask if we could get it on, and I saw no problem with it for seeing who Mr. Deems is. So I thought I'd put it to a full council vote to see if they wanted to do that.
Did you have his resume yesterday?
No, yesterday afternoon.
The resume ended up getting caught up in the administration side before it came over to us.
Well, we can
But it
take
was
the time you want to
discussed
look over his resume right now. It's pretty impressive. I mean, this individual has more aviation experience than Mr. Dietz over here. You only fly little private jets. He flies the big ones. So, I fully recommend that we approve this, this appointment to the airport authority. I think he's qualified in everything, but we have full council discussion on it.
I make a motion that this individual is not presented, it's pulled. We have an ordinance that said we need 7 business days. We didn't get it. I just got that today.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Phillips. Do we have a second on that?
I'm sorry, I thought it was pulled. Wasn't
It
there one that
was
was pulled?
There was discussion that it had been put on, it had been pulled, it was put back on.
Okay, I wasn't aware it was.
So it's going to kind of come back and forth.
And we spoke to the solicitor about that, and it was okay to present this tonight because of what happened, because of the circumstances of how this got messed up.
Okay.
We want to be represented on the airport authority. That's the most important thing for us in the county. And this is a good representative.
Okay.
But we have a motion, so we can't.
We have a motion. Is there a second to remove what was it, Daines?
Mr. Daines.
Mr. Daines. It dies for lack of a second. Any further discussion on these items? Well, I see Mr. Dowd is here. I want to thank him for his service to the airport authority, and I would be remiss if I didn't remind him that we did allocate, what was it, $250,000 for the upgrades and repairs to Braden Air Park, which, for those of us that have been here through that long battle, look forward to those upgrades moving forward as quickly as possible, because...
Thank you very much.
Anything else on the appointments?
Put it to work.
Ms. Zembo, can you call the vote?
May I ask a question? Are we going to do these individually or in total?
We could do either way. If you want to do them individually,
I would like to have them done in...
We can pull the one out that you don't want and do that individually. We usually do them as a total.
Let's do them in...
Do the work. But we can do whatever way you want.
Yeah, let's do
so
them.
I absolutely don't have that guy's name even. What is his name?
Dames.
D-A-E-M-S.
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 Brian Dames from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Delta pilot. So So we'll do that one
Do that
first
first,
and
I
then
guess.
follow suit.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Are we calling about? Never mind.
Okay, so for the vote on Mr. Daines. Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
No.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Bennell.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger.
Yes.
That passes by a vote of 7 to 1 with one present.
With one over.
7 to 1. Okay. Next
Shouting from
is on the remainder of the appointments. Call that vote.
Mr. Kraft.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Bennell.
Yes.
And Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
That passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Passes unanimously.
I guess Linda.
Go. Next is the Controller's Report. Mr. Barron, did you have anything this evening?
I do have a few items. First and foremost, I know Mr. Kusick is aware of this. On January 30th at 4 o'clock, County Council has the opportunity to meet with the external auditors. They're going to be here all day. From 9 a.m. to 12 is our work session. So I would prefer to reserve that time for my auditors to ask questions. It's going to be a lot of shop talk. But I know the county executive is meeting with them, and I know council has an appointment at 4 o'clock. If you can only make it to meet with them between 9 and 10 and would like a little bit of time, I can try to accommodate if that's the only time you, a member of council, has available but would like to see and meet with the external auditors. Any questions about that?
No, I just any member is certainly invited. Normally, the council president and the chairman of the finance committee are there, but if any other member is available and would like to discuss anything with the outside auditor, you're more than welcome to come.
I know Mr. Phillips has taken an interest in those types of meetings, so I wanted to make sure that.
I think I'll join.
Okay.
Okay. The next item, for those of you who missed the Finance Committee yesterday, I had made a suggestion based on, I believe it's Bruce Haynes from the Hotel Bethlehem. He had made the suggestion to me, part of the auditing of the hotel tax and when this came to be and when we refined our audits was the comped rooms, specifically at the Sands Casino. Mr. Haynes made a very good point. Something that I didn't think about is that there is consideration paid for those comp rooms between the Sands Casino and the hotel entity that runs that hotel on site. So if that is in fact the case, it should be subject to estate tax as well as the hotel tax. So not that I'm in the business of collecting for the state, but if we find that, I would alert them to the fact that there is consideration passing for those rooms so that they could make the appropriate requests to cover the state tax. However, we should also be looking at that, and I'm going to undertake that as an inquiry specifically because it was something that I didn't think there was any consideration that passed. But since there is money that passes, and even when I pay the associate rate at the Marriott because my brother works there, I still pay hotel tax. So that being the case, I think we should look at that and collect those funds because, if some of the hosting fees do disappear or fall away, we still want to be able to award those grants and use that hotel tax for Discover Lehigh Valley to promote the Lehigh Valley, bring tourism into the Lehigh Valley, and fill those rooms. I don't know if I need a formal ordinance or a request from council. I think I want to undertake that. I guess my question really is does anybody have any suggestions regarding that?
Yeah, certainly. We have other counties that do have casinos. We have a neighboring state that has casinos. I think maybe you should reach out to some of your colleagues through your association that are in the same boat to see what exactly it is they do with regards to the exact issue. So.
And I think this is a challenge akin to the gas companies who are engaged in fracking in the Central T of Pennsylvania, renting out entire hotels, being long-term tenants, and just basically giving a wad of cash to the hoteliers and say, we now own this place, you just be the proprietor and we come and go as we please. So I think it's kind of akin to that. So if we can recover some of that revenue, I think it would be good for the county. My last point, and I think this is important because you all have seen my face on the news very recently. A lot of questions why. Basically no one else would speak. I would. And during my last campaign, the thing that really stuck with me is the fact that I was called a career politician. What a lot of you may or may not know about me is I've changed adult diapers in a group home. I have held someone's hand when they were told that they would need to move to an arrangement and their Social Security was being taken away. I remember Christmas Eve of 2000, I was ducking as a child at Kids Peace through staplers at my head, hoping to God I was not going to be in the hospital that evening because he was having a breakdown because his parents did not come to pick him up. That being said, I read the executive statement today, and my opinion on that is too little too late. And the reason for that is because there are very good people, many of whom in the stapler incident, there's a gentleman who works at Children and Youth today who was there with me, and they're my friends. And they have been hung out to dry by this administration. They are too good for that. The supervisors are much, much better than what this administration gave them. And quite honestly, he owes them an apology. He owes the taxpayers an apology. And I'm sick of the radio silence when simple questions are asked. Mr. Cusick, you and I talked about this yesterday. Age, or name, rank, and serial number. It was really that simple. I found it on the computer very, very easily. I have no problems providing that information, confirming what I know, especially when a child, not much older than my oldest daughter, is dead. Thank you.
Okay, County Executive Report. Mr. Brown, anything this evening?
I find myself in agreement with the controller on one point, that we do have great people working at our Children and Youth Division. And as I stated earlier in the statement, the work they do is very trying under ordinary circumstances, let alone the situation that we find ourselves in. But I'd like to reiterate, while other people feel at liberty to share information, in the statement I released earlier and I shared with council at the earlier meeting, I just want to reiterate one part of this. After the horrific circumstances surrounding Grace Parker's death became known, questions were posed to the county, as well as many other entities. Northampton County's Children, Youth, and Family Division is bound by strict confidentiality statutes and regulations which preclude the release of detailed information concerning this matter. Moreover, the agency cannot engage in conduct which would compromise criminal investigation assessment being conducted by other entities. Those restrictions we take very seriously at the administration, and by no means is the challenge that we have in those confidentialities and honoring those privileges and statutes a reflection of the opinion of this administration, or I believe the taxpayers of our Children and Youth Division overall. They have all full support with that. This is just a process that we need to move through. And as stated earlier in our comments, our local agency is working with the Commonwealth agency and following the protocols that are absolutely appropriate, not only to protect the children, which is the intention of everyone here, but also to make sure things are done in a manner that is appropriate. Unfortunately, while Mr. Barron has an issue with the comments or the lack thereof of the administration on this matter, I also find myself challenged by the fact that he, as an elected official, was willing to access confidential information and actually provided the Social Security number and other information to the media to be published, which is in direct violation of a number of statutes, federal, state, and our own issues overall. So the challenge is, how do we respond on matters like this while protecting not only former employees, protecting current employees who have an expectation of privacy and confidentiality, which has certain roles that allow us to have access to, but by no means gives us permission to share that in a public manner going forward. So again, for council, I respect the challenge that you have in this matter, as we all have with it, and we wish the family the best that we can, and we pray for Grace herself.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next, we will move into old business. We don't have anything listed on the agenda. Is there any other old business that any member of council would like to bring up at this time? Okay. There being none, we will move into new business. First item is an introduction of an ordinance amending ordinance number 603-2015, titled "An Ordinance Establishing the Livable Landscapes and Open Space Plan Program for Northampton County and further providing for the administration of the 21st Century Open Space Initiative." Okay, so I believe Mr. Dietz is going to be one of the co-sponsors. Do we have a second? Mr. Geisinger. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at our February 2nd, 2017 meeting. Next item under new business is consideration of a resolution amending resolution number 52-2014, and I'll call on Mr. Dietz to introduce this resolution.
All right, I'll read the, now therefore be resolved by Northampton County Council. 1, Northampton County Council hereby approves the Ballast Tract Master Site Plan Development Project located in Bushkill Township. Further, Northampton County Executive, through the Office of the Program Administrator of Northampton County 21st Century Open Space Initiative, or his or her designee, is directed to take any and all steps necessary to administer and complete Northampton County's obligations in this project. 2, Northampton County Council further directs the Northampton County Executive to appropriate $84,399.14 instead of the $137,336 as a Northampton County contribution to the Ballast Tract Master Site Plan Development Project located in the Bushkill Township.
Okay, this was discussed earlier this evening at the Open Space Committee. Is there any further discussion from council at this time? There being none, Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
No, yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. Next item under new business is consideration of a resolution pertaining to the Regional Trail Gap Closure Program analysis work, and I'll call on Mr. Dietz to introduce the resolution into the record.
Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that Northampton County Council supports the use of Act 13 Marcellus Shale Legacy funding for the work to begin the completion of identified trails, gaps through appraisals, title research, and survey work up to $100,000.
Again, this was also discussed earlier at the Open Space Committee. Is there any further discussion from council this evening on the matter? There being none, Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. That was all we had under new business. Is there any other new business that any member would like to discuss at this time? Okay, there being none, we will move into the council committee reports. Any committee reports this evening? Mr. Vaughn?
Yes, we had a committee, Human Services Committee meeting prior to the full council meeting this evening. At that meeting, We had an update from Graysdale from Mr. Soto, which, for all intents and purposes, was a good update. I think Mr. Kusick got the most clarification from his question that we're financially doing pretty well in Graysdale, which is kind of a 180 turn from where it was headed previously, and that's all good news. We also got an update from the Drug and Alcohol Division, and Mr. Brown read us a formal statement on the Grace Packer issue. Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Mr. Dietz, you had a comment? No, nothing further?
Well, just for the record, we
Yep.
had our capital projects, and it was very, I think, thorough and very well participated. I think moving that to Wednesday night, right after the finance and the personnel, is a good move, and it's going to be more time efficient for everybody.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Okay, next, liaison, Mr. Dietz.
Reach out to Mr. Weaver, from the Emergency Management about trying to have him come by the second meeting in February for an update on the 911 merger.
Okay. Yeah, that's, we had a lengthy presentation sometime last year. Were you here? Yeah, and, I want to see what progress we're making towards that, so I'm looking forward to that. Any other liaison reports? Okay. Clerk? Nothing. Solicitor, Mr. Lauer?
Just to clarify with respect to the action regarding the approval of appointments, one of which is coming to you for the first time today. I was asked prior to the meeting whether the ordinance dating back to April of 2015, which directed the executive to provide you with 7 business days to evaluate people. The ordinance makes a direction to how the county executive and his personnel should provide you with information. However, it does not say that you can or can't act on information provided without any notice. So, I mean, I think council acted legally in taking the action it took. However, with respect to Mr. Phillips, there is an ordinance directing that this information should come to you more than 7 business days or more before this. So I just thought it was appropriate to explain that what you did, I think, is lawful, but I think the information coming as late as it did is not what you've directed the executive to do. So.
Mr. Phillips?
If I may respond, Counselor. It's clear on the face what our intent was, and it may be the fact that your interpretation is that we didn't act with the intent, but it's still legal. But the intent certainly was that, I mean, the fact that I didn't know the man's name, and I was expected to vote on it. I don't look at my email 24 hours a day. And how anybody here voted on this man without knowing his, if maybe they all do it and they felt comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable, did not know his name, and I will never vote on a personal issue where we don't have the information 7 days ahead of time.
And, while we're talking about appointments, we still have not received an additional appointment to the Retirement Board. I know there hasn't been a meeting yet, but I'm hopeful that next month we would receive that. Is that something that we have coming forward, or?
Yeah, on a similar manner, we just have the documentation from the individual coming together in order to move that forward, so that should be before council next month.
Okay, thank you. Anything else this evening from council? Mr. Bennell?
Just for the record, to address Mr. Phillips' point, I agree with you, Mr. Phillips, and I guess my issue was I didn't know it was reinstated, but I did have time to see his resume when I went through. I did look at my emails earlier today, and then the last email I saw was pulled from the agenda. So I agree with you. The only reason I voted for it was because I thought his resume was impeccable. So, but I do agree with you going forward. If it's not to the Personnel Committee, I won't be voting for it.
Anything else this evening? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn, moved by Mr. Kraft, seconded by Mr. Geisinger. Have a nice evening, everyone.
See you later, bud.
All right.
It's always good when the press walks up.
I have
and goes,
nothing
"How are you
else to
doing?"
say about Grace Packer, so don't even ask.
I'm not asking regarding, I have questions about the situation, but not the questions that have been asked.